Hey guys, Marshall here from the channel Plausibly Anything. We got an important video today, and we're uncovering some ancient scrolls of supposed gospels that are not included in the Bible, or not even accepted in the Bible, which is kind of cool. Well, the cool part about it is that I'm trying to discover this stuff as an individual. I'm starting to think about, like, there's a lot of people that probably be like, you know what, there's no reason to read this stuff because it's not included in the group, the way that the group thinks. And so what I'm doing is I'm uncovering this now, and someone else did, and they basically translated it so I could look at the translations and get some cool quotes from it. They're like sayings from Yahshua. I think that's pronounced right, or maybe it's Yeshua with more of a yesh instead of a yash. Yeshua, which is also an interesting thing because it seems as though it's way more common to call him by the wrong name. So I'm not even going to state that name. Actually, the wrong name is the one that's taking the Lord's name in vain, which is an interesting thing too. But here we go. The first is like, it's kind of summarized. It says like, live by these sayings and you will no longer taste death. And the way I see that is like, I see it like a detachment from even fearing death, because you have like found your true alignment and your essence, and you consistently are living by these sayings, and you no longer will fear death or even taste it. You'll just kind of accept it, not be hopeful for your own rapture or whatever. But here we go. So when you know yourself, you will be known. That's a simple one. And also I'm condensing these into really simple, like there's other parts to these sayings, but that's like the line that means the most in that, or one of the early parts to this gospel found in Egypt in 1946. When you know yourself, you will be known. And I think that is like, when you are true to yourself, when you know who you are, you know that you're going to go towards your desires in the right way, fulfilling the better life for yourself, then you will be known by people and seen more, and you won't be hiding, I guess, yourself. And it also goes into another one after that where it talks about, don't do against love, you're naked to the eyes of God, already revealed. And there's so many, it's like, don't hold back your thoughts, say them. They're already in your head. God can see what you're thinking. You're not hiding. Just be who you are, and you will be known. It coincides with the first one. And I'm going to spin off of this for a second, and talk about how I see, and this was kind of exposed to me through a podcast recently. I'll say the name. It was on Joe Rogan. Greg Braden, and he kind of actually even showed me this gospel that was pretty cool. And I'm just kind of getting started in this gospel, but he talks about how is one of the most important things is like, how can you continue to harness the ability and the divinity of yourself into your spirit no matter what, and then not be somebody that goes around the world and severs that divinity of your spirit. Because there's so many times whenever people don't even realize what they're doing, but they're oftentimes severing some people that are very susceptible to being not losing their attachment to to what they believe, losing the attachment to them being like a spiritual person. And then that also kind of reminds me is like, yes, religion is one thing, but being a spiritual person is another thing. The compassion for other people's religions is a very spiritual thing. And I see this as a fundamental way that I think almost all religions should be, is a way that you shouldn't be severing other people's spiritual divinity if they're and to make sure that they're still on that pursuit to give people freedom. And it's like the freedom to be able to serve your God, the freedom to be able to live your life. And so there's people out there trying to sever that freedom, and I really dislike that. I just really don't think that should be in anybody's religion. I don't think that should be something. And I think that is one of like the most important parts of this specific gospel too, and maybe one of the most important parts of even the Bible is to harness the spiritualness and not put up barriers for other people to even practice their spiritualness and have their connection, because some people don't see that as their own internal channeling. They honestly see there's a lot of people out there, tons of people that just see the reality around them, and that is their reflection of how they should believe. And so whenever someone says, some people aren't accepted in churches, I'm sure, and they'll even say, they'll even get possessive over their religion and say, this isn't for you, because you need to change. This isn't for you. Putting up that barrier to even be able to be spiritual, even beyond those, even the print on the paper. So the severing of divinity is just not something I approve of, and it's a really sticky situation because you don't want to be the proactive person where you're like going out and being like, hey, you're suppressing other people, because you end up in that spiral. But it's a sticky situation. But as long as somebody is practicing their religion and not suppressing a group physically, that's an important thing, because even beyond, whenever your spiritual pursuit becomes a physical suppression of people, that's I cannot approve of that. I will always go against that. Obviously there are things that physically and inevitably, honestly, you have to act physically sometimes on those people. They have to be kind of restrained. But as long as you seek the betterment of those groups of people, then there'll never be anything wrong. And even sometimes, if you're trying to be spiritual, suppressing of other people, it is kind of up to me as a person, you as a person, to not let that hinder you, and not let that turn you into a reactive person where you're trying to do the same to them. So it's just kind of like find your way to navigate this ability to try to support others' ability to connect with their own spirit. And even beyond that, there's just so much other ways. There's a lot of other ways. There's no direct answer to doing this. You can even conjure up your own ways. You're an individual. You can conjure up your own ways to help improve your divinity, your spiritual nature. For me, early on in this Mentoring 365 playlist, you can check out all the channels. There is a bunch of stuff on chakras, where I was just like exploring these ideas and the self-expression and all of it intertwined. It was an appreciation. It was like I was sort of calculating in my head these different areas of my body that needed help, And then in meditation, if you do that, you can actually, I really believe that you can actually heal parts of your body, or connect, maybe not heal, but connect with parts of your body that may have been dormant. And then there's also on top of that this idea of branching off from just being a focus-driven frontal lobe person into trying to explore the whole brain, and find a way to, like a monk, be able to find a way to honestly harness other areas of your brain too, so that you can be operating possibly at even a you know a higher level, and I do believe that too. So, and they've even actually, there's science behind this too, where there's been they've studied the ability for monks in meditation to be able to generate very high gamma readings in their brain, higher than what a normal person can reach. But then also on the top of that, they can actually reach lower gamma states where it almost is like they're not alive. Like these lower gamma rates would be something that we would see in someone that's passing away. So it's like they are able to do things with their brain that other people aren't able to do. And so the way I see that is that there's parts of our brain that we can use that we may not be even using that often. And so meditation is one way, I think, to sort of calibrate that stuff. And here we're going to another one here, in these Gospels that were found in Egypt. I'll say this one. I don't really have anything to say on this. It says, "I have sown fire upon the world. I tend it to a blaze." I don't really know how to expand on top of that one, but I'm gonna still read that one anyways. And then here's another one. "When you are in light, what will you do? When you are one, you create two. Now that you are two, what will you do?" Sounds like some Dr. Seuss, but that seems very profound to me. And that is like that alignment of becoming, the fullness of what you can be. Like when you become, and that was early on, we said, like, it kind of matches the same thing as when you know yourself, you will be known, I think. When you become one with yourself, you'll become two. And I think that is like connecting with your creator also in a way. I'm sure there's always a bunch of different ways you could have the gratitude to help you harness ability to be beyond just the self. So many different ways you could probably find a way to harness yourself to feel like you become something more connected to the physical world, your spiritual self. You go out and appreciate nature. I think there's a lot of times whenever you become very connected with something beyond, that helps you perform somewhat in miracles almost. You can jump into the moment, and if you're freestyling a beat, like oftentimes I experience these words that come and I'm like, what? I don't even know how I did that. I've been able to just do, some days are way better than others, but some days it's just like, wow, I'm harnessing something that is there that I wouldn't even expected, when I just jumped into it, It's like, it's almost like quieting a lot of the areas of mind and bringing out that full ability sometimes, which you can do things, it's almost like you're not even thinking or directing, you're able to just do something amazing. And so that's one way I also see that, that's exploring your capabilities, the full abilities of your brain. And in this podcast, the guy talks about your heart having neurons in it. And they discovered that like recently, I don't know, in the last decade, that they didn't really search for neurons in the heart, but there's some sort of connection in your heart and your brain. And I also think of that maybe in a way you become two whenever you connect your heart to your brain. It's like when you connect the chakras in a way, you become more complete. So there's multiple ways, I think, to getting to this area. And unfortunately, sometimes people put up those barriers and think that there's only one way. So, but we will continue here. What will you Now that you are two, what will you do? That last part, I want to stick on. Now that you're two, what will you do? And oftentimes you should be pursuing core desires and actually putting those down. Writing down what are your core desires. And for me, after I hear this, the podcast spoke to me because it was like telling me, it was reminding me, hey, stay on track. You can provide freedom to other people like you seek people to do to others. Be the change in the world that you see. And, if somebody's very like in the shell of themselves, you know, kind of just conflicted, somewhat dissociative of things, then you can help them. If they're if they'll actually give you their ear to hear, and you can help them. If they're not able to do that, then obviously that doesn't always work. But it doesn't mean you can't go to that next person and help bring them some freedom in this world that can be very chaotic. So, what will you do? For me, that's something. And there's so many different ways you can do that. Bring freedom to other people. For me, I think right now my best way to bring freedom is sometimes humor. I want to bring them into this state of enjoyment to create. And so when I write a joke, I tell a joke, I'm enjoying that joke. Sometimes it doesn't land, oftentimes it does, but it's like, hey, join in the laughter. It's like an exaggeration of what we're capable of. That the laughter is often from a surprise of it beyond the metrics of what people are even willing to say, and so sometimes sometimes it can be really inappropriate, and and it's almost conflicting for me to wait, can I say this joke, or is it a conflict of what it can do to people? And then I start thinking, I'm like, well, no, this doesn't suppress anybody physically, and hopefully the joke isn't something that will suppress somebody spiritually either. So as long as I can make sure I don't do that, there's so many jokes I could tell that are extremely inappropriate, that just wouldn't, that aren't directed towards someone specifically, that's not going to suppress them physically either. So, but it's delicate, and I don't want to ever say things that attack people. I don't know what this means, but we're going to say this one too. Joshua said, after the disciple asked him, what should you do whenever I'm gone? Or the disciple, what disciple asked Yeshua, what should I do when you're gone? He said, when I am gone, go to James the Just. I don't know exactly what that means, but maybe James the Just is another one that is connected with the God, with the source of life, and that's who he's directing him towards. So, that's what we do a lot of times too. We're like, this person can help you too. This person is connected. You want to put them in good hands. Yeah, we'll move on from that. I don't think I have anything else to say about that one. Go to any land. You're welcome to receive the offers and heal the sick. Saying that there's just there's no boundaries to who you can heal. It doesn't matter what area of the world. It's a thing you carry in yourself everywhere in the world. If you can go any in the world and see if you can provide some freedom for those people, maybe you can provide some laughter, some ability to enjoy. He says, I have come to sow division upon earth, fires, and world and war. I think he's, he wants to be a symbolical, more than a symbolical, he wants to be divisive towards war and fire and, he said word and war. He wants to be divisive upon, even the things that you say can be, very hurtful too. The words can be very suppressive. If the words are put in the right way, they can be very suppressive. I don't want any of my, my jokes to be something that suppresses people, because words are dangerous. Definitely, words are definitely dangerous. Here's one. What do you know of the beginning that you now seek end? I think it is a bit. It is a bit of. It's a shame that some people do seek an end to their to their life at times, and they see the chaos in the world and they think, the rapture's coming, and it's almost like they seek it. And rather, they need to become detached and even accept, maybe the rapture will come, and really just kind of live in the moment versus, being a guy with a megaphone out in public going, well, the rapture's coming, repent now. That's like seeking a way to push that fear on people towards I don't know, that spreading of fear. I just don't really agree with. A lot of times those people do mean well, and oftentimes it comes out the opposite. And this is a delicate thing. Some things, there's some things in the Bible that could be taken the wrong way. There's and interpreted the wrong way, and I even have trouble interpreting that one when it said, I've sown fire upon the world, I tend it to ablaze. Some of this stuff can be interpreted in the wrong way, and when you're really connected deep in you'll know what exactly you should be connecting with. And so there's nothing in me deep down that really connects with telling people the rapture's coming and you need to repent. So it doesn't, if you saw somebody, and this is a specific person I think I saw outside of a power game or something like that, and it really is kind of pushing people away from sometimes that, like, these are the people that it's often the craziest ones that go out and actually go in public and say the crazy stuff because they want some people to wake up, which I get that, but when you're outside of a baseball game and everyone's going in just to watch baseball, like, what do you're assuming everybody needs to repent and fear the rapture? I just don't get along with that, and sometimes those people are actually putting a barrier in the way of people being able to feel spiritual. They'll think, oh, that religion's not for me because this guy is kind of, honestly, some of those people even look like they're crazy because of how how they how they go about expressing themselves. I think in the end they really actually do want to give the people the freedom, but sometimes in those words, if you don't pick carefully, you could be doing the opposite. And I even had an experience when I was younger, whenever there's a religious person, and I was, I was drinking, and I wasn't living the most even Catholic lifestyle. And I think a Christian man said to me, here's why you're not one of God's children or something like that. And so he's kind of actually putting a barrier up for me at that point in time. He could have said, well, this is why you're one of God's children. And so there's vice versa. So that is actually, so what he's saying is, I'm going to take away your spiritual freedom because you're not serving the God that I see you should be serving it. So I'm going to take that from you, which is, it's really crazy to, if you're not really cognizant, if you're not really reflecting on what you're doing, all of a sudden you end up being the person disrupting other people's faiths, or where they could be encouraging it. So there's two ways to go about this. You could be, and there is like an alignment thing with the words you're saying. Do they align with what you're trying to do? So whenever the guy's like really crazy out there with the megaphone, acting wild, yelling at people, a lot of people are just going to be like, wait a second, I don't want to be like that person. And so that alignment, now if they had the energy that was really accepting and like saying, oh, I see here all of God's people, they may not see others as equal, but as we work together, we can see each other as equal people in a direction to bring freedom to each other, to not be divisive, to not separate the divinity in each other. That's beautiful. But if you go out there and you say the wrong thing, if you, especially whenever it's not in alignment to what you're saying, and this is an important thing, is like, what reaction do you want in somebody else? You must give that reaction to yourself first. I have so much gratefulness to what God has given to us, this life, that I'm going to go out today and I'm going to see if I can bring that gratitude to other people. And if you're aligned with what you're saying and you show people that you have that twinkle in your eye of gratitude, just feel like, yeah, there's a lot of chaos in the world, but hey, I'm going to be here and I'm going to take on this role to help bring some freedom for some people. That's beautiful. It's so beautiful. And if it's in alignment, it shouldn't be chaotic. It shouldn't show people, it shouldn't give other people the wrong image of what, and I know a lot of preachers do a really good job of being that person that is basically aligned. I mean, a lot of them don't, but the people that go out in the world often take something negative and run with it. So this, I mean, like I said, it's a delicate thing, and we don't want to sever other people's ability to feel like they can be spiritual. I don't think it matters what the person is, and there's a lot of confused people out there. You can lend them a hand, in a way. Lend them the word. Find those parts of the Bible that really speak to adding freedom and enjoyment to people, and then share those ones. And then, I mean, how can you, once you finally see it, it's just like, oh yeah, this is, finally you kind of have that twinkle in your eye again, where you just love this life that you have. And so, and I don't even know if I would be here, if I didn't have to go through some crazy transformation. I don't even know if I'd be here talking to you guys about, this stuff. But I went through it. I went through some really dark times, and I came out feeling great. And there's a lot of other people who can do the same thing too, and to conquer whatever sort of things they're going through, to find a way to see that they can find a way to connect with themselves, to spend a little bit more time trying to connect with themselves, to know themselves and know their desires, the core desires that are going to help give them the fulfillment of life, and ask themselves and even write down what they believe is going to get them to their core desires. Then boom, you take that hour out Sometimes it's like maybe an hour and a hour a week. Maybe it's just literally an hour of your year writing down what you think you should, you know, what pursuit you should have towards your desires, and then just being able to look at that once a week or something like that. It's nothing crazy, like. But if you don't, you'll just end up being dissociated, and just consuming of the alcohol. You won't be, you'll be dropping out of college or something. You'll be not believing that you have potential in your life. All these things can happen to you when you don't actually find a way to know yourself. And here's an important one. Strengthen yourself with great energy of the robbers, or the robbers will find a way to get to you or profit on what you have found, basically. And that one, I kind of rewrote that one a little bit too, kind of condensed it. And that one to me, and that's an extremely important one, because like if you're not ready for something like tragic to happen to you, this could, it could be something smaller that just really causes you so much hardship. If you don't have the way to harness your great energy, if you don't have the alignment, you could be absolutely devastated off of one decision you make. So harnessing the great energy is like, it's almost, to me, it seems like a force field. It's like you can hold that enjoyment, that gratitude and everything, and if you consistently are maintaining that, you're consistently listening to yourself, reflecting, not disconnecting yourself, you're not like, using drugs that sort of disconnect you from your, that alignment between your heart and your brain and everything. Then whenever somebody comes around you and is like trying to bait you into doing something horrible, then you have this force field. You're like, no, that's not for me. That's for sure. So it's like, are you going to be susceptible to somebody? Because there's dark people out there that want to bring you into their darkness. They want you to feel like a victim too, and they want you to do dark things as a reactive person, kind of like what they're doing. And so, yeah, find a way to harness that great energy. When you make the inner like the outer and the high like the low, then you will enter the kingdom of heaven. And I think that can be taken two ways. I think it could be in the present. You can enter that connection with God in the present. The inner with the outer, heaven above, the physical earth below, connecting in all angles. Then you live in this kind of state of heaven in life. But also that could be taken as, physically being able to transcend into heaven. And maybe even when you get, you have to go through this spiritual journey and harness this energy throughout life till the day you die, if you actually want to be able to ascend in some sort of heaven after death. You have to maintain that that connection. And then, like I said earlier, you do not taste death because you have made that connection. And I can tell you right now, there is something about connection I've made where I don't really, fear death as much. There's something about this feeling that I have that, I stick to this purpose I have on earth of trying to provide freedom to others, the voice for others to self-express. to explore their best version of themselves. And then when I die, I I don't exactly, you know, have the same perception of heaven as everybody else does. I don't think anybody really has the same exact. Everyone has some different picture of what exactly they're going to see up there. They could write it down. Nobody's going to be the same. And so what I see is that my job's probably not going to be done. Even after I pass away, I'm hoping that the universe or God have something else for me after that. I don't think that my work's done. And so, to me, then I don't exactly seek death, but whenever it comes, I see that there's more work to be done afterward. So, that's just the way I see it, guys. I hope that this opens your eyes. If you want to check out that gospel that was, there is a PDF online of that gospel that was found in Egypt in 1946 that isn't really accepted, and they don't even exactly know who wrote it. But that's a lot of, a lot of that stuff is like, who wrote that? We don't exactly know. Sometimes we have more of indicators than others, but thank you guys so much for watching. You made this far. Please follow the channel, like the channel. And join me again. I'm Marshall. The channel's Plausibly Anything, where we just are on this journey to figure out how we can better the world. And yeah, take care. I have a lot of love and appreciation for anyone that connects with this, because there's a lot of people who don't. And there's even a lot of people that probably think that this is not, I guess, even a pure enough viewpoint on, whether it doesn't reflect their religion or something like that. But that's okay. This is the journey that we're on. I'm going to be an individual, and I'm going to keep on putting out content just like this. Well, not just like this, but we're going to, we kind of bounce around. So thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you guys next time. Take care.